She didn't resist when they handcuffed her at the shooting range. No badge, no explanation needed, just a quiet woman hitting impossible targets who refused to identify herself. The courtroom in that coastal New England town expected a simple hearing that morning until the heavy doors opened and a Navy admiral, medals blazing under fluorescent light, strode silently down the aisle, prompting every military veteran in attendance to rise on instinct, while the judge's expression drained of color as she read the sealed documents he handed over. Everything shifted in that moment. Which city are you watching this from today? If you're drawn to stories like this one, real, hidden, powerful, subscribe for more accounts of silent service and heroes whose names will never make headlines. That day had started like any other, with a misty dawn rolling across a civilian shooting range on the northeastern coast. Shooters arrived slowly, fog hanging low. Among them, a woman in her late 30s, nothing striking about her, worn jeans, neutral jacket, baseball cap pulled low, and a nondescript long case in her hand. Frank Sullivan, the range officer and a former Navy man himself, sipped black coffee while watching her from the booth. After decades in the service and another 10 overseeing this range, he'd grown used to sorting shooters by behavior. Hunters, enthusiasts, law enforcement, show-offs. But she didn't match any type. She moved with deliberate silence, set up on the farthest lane, assembled her weapon like it was an extension of her body, and began firing with uncanny control. The first shots landed center mass, and as she shifted to increasingly distant targets without adjusting her optics or posture, Frank took notice. Her breathing was methodical, a timed inhale, deliberate pause, relaxed trigger pull. When she subtly compensated for wind without any instrument, even seasoned hunters started whispering. A nervous patron reported her lack of ID, and soon 2 officers arrived. Calmly and without resistance, she let them escort her away, revealing nothing but a blank keycard and a notebook filled with coordinates. At the sheriff's station, just a few holding cells and 2 detectives, she gave no name, no address, and spoke only once hours later, explaining the scar on her wrist as a climbing mishap, though Frank recognized it from his time working with Navy rope teams. No records matched her prints, local or state. Federal systems were conveniently down. When brought into court, she remained composed, her stillness more unsettling than any outburst could have been. Just as the judge began reading charges, unregistered weapons, failure to identify possible terrorism links, the chamber fell silent as the courtroom doors creaked open and a Navy admiral entered with 2 officers at his side. He walked directly to the bench, handed over a sealed file, and stood in silence as the judge read. Her demeanor shifted from frustration to stunned reverence. She announced that all charges were dropped immediately, citing national security. The woman, now referred to as Commander Hayes, was released, her cuffs removed as everyone in uniform snapped to attention, including bailiffs and even the Homeland Security agent. Hayes, in her first clear sentence since the arrest, apologized quietly. "No," the Admiral responded. "It's we who owe you the apology, Commander." And with that word, Commander, the truth settled over the room like a fog lifting. Her posture changed subtly but unmistakably. She no longer needed to blend in. Even the judge, a former JAG officer, stood in acknowledgement. Outside, reporters swarmed. Sheriff Daniels demanded answers. The Admiral confirmed only that Hayes had served in classified operations for over a decade, was a decorated operator, and posed zero threat to the town, in fact, quite the opposite. When Wells, the detective who had booked her, stepped forward to apologize, she met his eyes directly. "You did your job. No apology needed." A veteran in a VFW hat approached. "I knew there was something in your walk," he said softly. "Thank you for whatever it is you do." She shook his hand firmly. Then the Admiral checked his watch. "Commander Hayes, time to go. Debrief is waiting." "Silent Harbor," Sheriff Daniels whispered. The classified op that had stopped an attack the year before. No confirmation came. Hayes disappeared into a black SUV. As the convoy pulled away, the officers who had once cuffed her now stood at full attention in silence. She hadn't hidden guilt. She had been trained to obscure brilliance. That evening, Frank closed the range alone when a black government vehicle returned. Hayes stepped out. She was different now, still calm, but no longer minimizing herself. Came to retrieve my gear, she said. Frank nodded. It was returned earlier, special delivery. As she verified the contents of the case, Frank cleared his throat. I did 2 decades in subs, nothing like what you do, but I could tell something was different. Most people see what they want, she said. You saw what was there. She walked to the furthest lane, aimed without a scope, and landed a bull's on a target barely visible in the dusk. Frank didn't need to say anything. You could have stepped in earlier, she said on her way out. Didn't feel like my place, but I made a call, Old Navy contact. She nodded in understanding. Will you come back? He asked. Some of us never leave, she replied. You just stop noticing us. 2 weeks later, Wells got a call from Admiral Wilson inviting him to a quiet ceremony at Naval Station Norfolk. She asked for you, the Admiral said. The next morning, Wells passed through layers of security to sit in a room with less than 50 people, all carrying themselves like they'd seen more than they could ever say. No press, no cameras. Commander Hayes stepped up in full formal dress. The Admiral spoke of her 11-month undercover mission, her prevention of coordinated attacks on major ports, and her reputation as one of the most capable operators in modern counterterrorism. When her cover was at risk, she stayed the course, the Admiral said, even when it meant being arrested. Later, Wells approached her. Congratulations, Commander. Thank you, Detective. I'm sorry again. You did what was right with the info you had. That's exactly why we need people like you. Couldn't you have just told us? He asked. My mission wasn't done. The people we tracked had reached into law enforcement. Any hint of favoritism and it all collapses. So you let it happen? Sometimes you commit to the role. I knew the Admiral would step in before it went too far. She was called away, but not before she smiled. Keep doing good work. Wilson stepped beside him. She's one of a kind. Yes, sir, Wells nodded. If you're ever ready for a change, Wilson added, my door's open. 6 months later, Wells stood on the deck of a Navy vessel as the main coastline faded. After 13 years as a local detective, he had joined NCIS as a liaison between law enforcement and special ops. A message pinged his phone. Some of us are always around. Welcome aboard. He smiled, recognizing her words. He probably wouldn't see her again. People like her operated in permanent shadows. But now, he'd be part of the framework that protected them. His new assignment began when the captain handed him a report about odd activity near a private range. Thought you might want to take point, the captain said. Wells noticed something familiar in the description. A woman hitting distant targets with flawless precision. Some things never change, he murmured. Weeks passed. His encounter with Hayes became a training scenario across departments. One stormy night, working late, a knock sounded at his office door. Standing there in civilian clothes was Commander Hayes. Detective, she said with a nod. Agent, he corrected. Didn't expect to see you. Plans change, she replied. Your recent work caught attention. We need your perspective. What kind of op? One that lives between military and civilian lines, someone who knows both sides. She slid a file across his desk. Wilson recommended you. Inside, intel on a domestic threat with international ties. Why me? He asked. Because when you arrested me, you trusted the process over your instinct. That's what we need now. When do we begin? We already have. Meet me at 600, same range, and Wells, leave the cuffs at home. As she left, he looked at the folder. Operation Quiet Current. The next chapter had begun. Frank opened the range early as usual and was surprised to see the lights already on. Hello, he called out. Just me, came her voice. She sat at his desk reviewing satellite imagery. Didn't expect you this soon, he said. It's been, 10 months? Closer to 11, she said. And this isn't a friendly visit, Frank nodded. Wells called. Said I should prep for company. He's catching on quickly. We'll need exclusive access for the next 72 hours. She handed him an envelope. He opened it. Enough funding to float the range for half a year. You didn't need to pay, he said. We follow protocol, she replied. Soon, unmarked vehicles arrived. A telecom van that wasn't. SUVs with tinted windows. People moving with practiced anonymity. By midday, the range had become a forward command center. When Wells arrived with equipment, he greeted Frank. "Thanks again. Couldn't say no when the country asks," Frank said. "Besides, she's persuasive." "That she is." Hayes briefed the team. A threat within 80 kilometers, 3 potential sites, civilian areas. They had to proceed carefully. Wells coordinated with local police, crafting a narrative that bought them time. That night, they caught a break. A warehouse registered to a dummy corporation lit up on thermal haze looked at the screen. The woman asked how she'd been spotted. "Wind compensation," Frank said. Hayes did the same. As they left, they handed Frank a new car. As they left, they handed Frank a new card, this one with an insignia he recognized. "We're always looking for trusted observers." "I might be ready," Frank said. "She spoke highly of you," the man replied. Frank watched them disappear down the dirt road. He looked at the new card, tucked it beside the first. Some serve in uniform, others serve in silence, and a few, like Frank, keep watch. Guardians of quiet ground where legends are trained, then vanish back into the dark. The next morning, he found a package on his desk, a thermal spotting scope and a secure comms unit. A note read, "Keep watching." He knew the handwriting instantly. Hayes might be gone, but the mission remained, and he was ready.